RA 7277, Rehabilitation and Integration of Disabled Person in the Mainstream Society. Also known as an act providing for the rehabilitation, self-development, and self-reliance of disabled person and their integration into the mainstream of society and for other purposes. Topic outline, introduction, general provisions, right and privileges of disabled persons, provision on discrimination against disabled persons. It began and held in Metro Manila on Monday, the 22nd of July, 1991, be it enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the Philippines in Congress assembled. Section 1. This act shall be known and cited as the Magna Carta for Disabled Persons. Section 2. Declaration of Policy. The grant of the rights and privileges for disabled persons shall be guided by the following principles. A. Disabled persons are part of the Philippine society. Thus, the Senate shall give full support to the improvement and total well-being of disabled persons and their integration into the mainstream of society. B. Disabled persons have the same rights as other people to take their proper place in society. They should be able to live freely and as independently as possible. C. The rehabilitation of the disabled persons shall be concerned of the government in order to foster their capability to attain a more meaningful, productive, and satisfying life. D. The state also recognizes the role of the private sector in promoting the welfare of disabled persons and shall encourage partnerships in programs that address their needs and concerns. E. To facilitate integration of disabled persons into the mainstream of society, the state shall advocate for encourage and respect for disabled persons. Section 3. Coverage. This act shall covers all disabled persons and, to the extent herein provided, departments, offices, and agencies of the national government and non-government organization involved in the attainment of the objectives of this act. Section 4. Definition of terms. For purposes of this Act, these terms are defined as follows. A. Disabled persons are those suffering from restriction of different abilities as a result of a mental, physical, or sensory impairment to perform an activity in the manner or within the range considered normal for a human being. B. Impairment is any loss of diminution or aberration of psychological, physiological, or anatomical structure of function. C. Disability shall mean a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more psychological, physiological, or anatomical function of an individual or activities of such individual. A record of such an impairment or being regarded as having such as impairment. D. Handicap refers to a disadvantage for a given individual resulting from an impairment or a disability that limits or prevents the function or activity that is considered normal given the age and sex of the individual. E. Rehabilitation is an integrated approach to physical, social, cultural, spiritual, educational, and vocational measures that create conditions for the individual to attain the highest possible level of functional ability. F. Social barriers refer to the characteristics of institutions, whether legal, economic, cultural, recreational, or other, any human group, community, or society which limit the fullest possible participation of disabled persons in the life of the group. G. Auxiliary aids and services include 1. Qualified interpreters or other effective methods of delivering materials to individuals with hearing impairments. 2. Qualified readers, tape tests, or other effective methods of delivering materials to individuals with visual impairments. 3. Acquisition or modification of equipment or devices. And 4. Other similar services and actions or all types of aids and services that facilitate the learning process of people with mental disability. Rights and privileges of disabled persons. Chapter 1 Employment. Section 5 Equal Opportunity for Employment. No disabled persons shall be denied access to opportunities for suitable employment. Section 6 Sheltered Employment. If suitable employment for disabled persons cannot be found through open employment as provided in the immediately preceding section, the state shall endeavor to provide it by means of sheltered employment. Section 7 Apprenticeship. Subject to the provision of the Labor Code as amended, disabled persons shall be eligible as apprentices or learners, provided that their handicap is not much as to effectively impede the performance of job operations in the particular occupation for which they are hired, provided, further, that after the lapse of the period of apprenticeship is found satisfactory in the job performance, they shall be eligible for employment. Section 8 Incentives for Employer. A. To encourage the active participation of the private sector in promoting the welfare of disabled persons and to ensure gainful employment for qualified disabled persons, adequate incentives shall be provided to private entities which employ disabled persons. Section 9 Vocational Rehabilitation. Consistent with the principle of equal opportunity for disabled workers and workers in general, the state shall take appropriate vocational rehabilitation measures that shall serve to develop the skills and potential of disabled persons and enable them to compete favorably for available productive and remunerative employment opportunities in the labor market. Chapter 2 Education. Section number 13 Assistance to Disabled Students. The state shall provide financial assistance to economically marginalized but deserving disabled students pursuing post-secondary or tertiary education. Section 14 is special education, or we also known as SPED. The state shall establish, maintain, and support a complete, adequate, and integrated system of special education for the visually impaired, hearing impaired, mentally retarded persons, and other type of exceptional children in all regions of the country. Section 15, we also have vocational or technical and other training programs. The state provide disabled persons with training in civics, vocational efficiency, sports, and physical fitness and other skills. Section 16, non-formal education. The state shall develop non-formal education programs intended for the total human development of disabled persons. Chapter 3 Health. Section 18 National Health Program. The Department of Health, in coordination with National Council for the Welfare of Disabled Persons, shall institute a national health program which shall aim to attain the following: A. Prevention of disability, whether occurring prenatally or postnatally. B. Recognition and early diagnosis of disability. And C. Early rehabilitation of the disabled. Section 19 Rehabilitation Centers. The Department of Health shall establish medical rehabilitation centers in the government provincial hospitals and shall include in annual appropriation the necessary funds for the operation of such centers. Section number 20 Health Services. The state shall protect and promote the right to health of disabled persons and shall adopt an integrated and comprehensive approach to their health development, which shall make essential health services available to them at affordable cost. Prohibition on discrimination against disabled persons. Chapter 1, the Discrimination in Employment. Section 32, Discrimination in Employment. No entity, whether public or private, shall discriminate against a qualified disabled person by reason of disability in regard to job application procedures, the hiring, promotion, or discharge of employees, employee compensation, job training, and other terms, conditions, and privileges of employment. Chapter 2, Discrimination on Transportation. Section 14, Public Transportation. It shall be considered discrimination for the franchises or operators and personnel of sea, land, and air transportation facilities to charge higher fares, refuse to convey a passenger his orthopedic devices, personal effects, and merchandise by reason of his disability.